We want to discuss the issue of the battles we face. And we are saying the battle belongs to the Lord. It may be our battle, but it's actually once you belong to God, the battle belongs to the Lord. In other words, it's clear that what happens to you affects God if you belong to Him. Describing Israel, he said, "They are the apple of my eye." What a nice way to be referred to. An apple of God's eye. What does that mean? Nothing can ever touch the apple of your eye without your permission. Even eye doctors have to really struggle to allow you to get you to cooperate to open the eye for them to check your eye. It means that absolutely nothing can reach us without the Lord Himself allowing it, if we are the apple of God's eye. And it means that whatever battles we have to deal with, these battles, we must be aware, if we are inside God, can only reach us when God allows it. You know, in the book of Job, the devil really was unhappy with God. Why? He had put a hedge of protection around Job so that whatever battle the devil wanted to bring on to Job, he couldn't go through it. He had to accuse God of putting a fence around, a hedge around Job. And that really blesses my heart. It means around me is a hedge. But that does not mean the hedge cannot be broken with the Lord's permission. That's what happened to Job. He was told, okay, you can only go further, this far, but no further. Then he asked for more. He was told even that you can go this far and no further. He was testing, because the argument was, if you allowed me to fight the devil, to fight Job, I'll finish him. He'll disagree with you and insult you to your face. That's a claim of the devil. So he said, try this. Try even that one. And Job never, ever ended up rebelling against God. And that's really what we need to talk about. God does not promise us there will be no fights. Does not promise us there will be no trouble. In fact, Jesus, before he left, he said, in the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. Why? I've overcome the world. In other words, if you and me are together, persecution will come, trouble will come. But because I've overcome, you will also overcome. That's the message I get in the book of Deuteronomy as I look at Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 24. It says, set out now and cross the Arnon Gorge. See, I have given into your hands Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his country. Begin to take possession of it and engage him in battle. This very day, I'll begin to put the terror and fear of you on all the nations under heaven. They will hear reports of you and will tremble and be in anguish because of you. From the desert of Kedemoth, I sent messengers to Sihon, king of Heshbon, offering peace and saying, let us pass through your country. We will stay on the main road. We will not turn aside to the right or to the left. Sell us food to eat and water to drink for their price in silver. Only let us pass through on foot. As the descendants of Esau, who live in Seir, and the Moabites who live in Ar, did for us, until we cross the Jordan into the land the Lord our God is giving us. But Sihon, king of Heshbon, refused to let us pass through, for the Lord your God had made his spirit stubborn and his heart obstinate, in order to give him into your hands, as he has now done. The Lord said to me, see, I have begun to deliver Sihon and his country over to you. Now begin to conquer and possess. Then verse, as we go on and listening to what God is saying, See, I have begun to deliver Sihon, is what God is saying, and his country over to you. Now begin to conquer and possess this land. Then he goes on in verse 32. When Sihon and all his army came out to meet us in battle at Jahaz, the Lord our God delivered him over to us, and we struck him down, together with his sons and his whole army. At that time we took all his towns and completely destroyed them. Men, women, and children. We left no survivors. But the livestock and the plunder from the towns we had captured, we carried off to ourselves. From Aroer to the rim of the Arnon Gorge, and from the town in the gorge, even as far as Gilead, not one town was too strong for us. The Lord our God gave us all of them. But in accordance with the command of the Lord our God, you did not encroach on any of the land of the Ammonites, neither the land along the coast of the Jabbok, nor that around the towns or in the hills. What are we learning? The battle surely belonged to God. And so he does several things that help the Israelites to take over their first portion. This is the first portion they now own, a place they can stay and call their own. Verse 24 says, set out now and cross the Arnon Gorge. See, I have given into your hand Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his country. Begin to take possessions of it and engage in him in battle. This very day, I will begin to put the terror and fear of you on all the nations under heaven. They will hear reports of you and will tremble and be in anguish because of you. Before you can say that your battle is the Lord's, you must find out that's the right battle. You know, they were told, this land you can't take, this land you can't take, but this one you can take. If you go fighting where the Lord is not with you, you will be defeated. Like the Israelites were at Kadesh Barnea when they tried to cross without God's permission. So do not call the battle the Lord's battle if you haven't heard from him. Why are you fighting your pastor? Why are you fighting your wife? Is that what the Lord has told you to do? For the battle to belong to the Lord, you have to consult him. Like the Israelites under Moses did. And they were told, go here, but don't go there. You know, in the book of Philippians chapter 1, verse 6, he is saying that, and he is promising us that whatever he has begun, he is going to bring to completion. But not everything we do ourselves is what he has begun himself. And so you need to be the kind of a person who say, has that been begun? Then that's the most critical thing. You have to go and find out, can you really say that God has begun what you are claiming he has begun? If he hasn't really begun it, how can you expect him to be the one to help you? If God has not told you to fight the king of Sihon, he will not go with you. It is not, the people talk about God being on my side. That is wrong theology. We never pray for God to be on our side. It is we who need to be on God's side. Oh, God be on our side. No. You don't even know what the right side is. It is you that should be on God's side rather than God be on your side. So why don't you first of all find out, what does God want? Does he want you to be involved in this fight? Then go into it, because it's no longer your fight. It's God's fight. And if it is God's fight, he can never ever lose it. You can be assured of victory, because that's what he has actually promised. Let me just read this verse I'm quoting so that you understand what he is saying. In Philippians chapter 1, verse 6. Being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. You can go into the battle confident, not afraid, not cowering, being confident of this. But then it has to be that he who began a good work, it has to be work begun by God, and it has to be good work. Don't fight for the sake of fighting. You have to ask yourself, so after I fight, after I've won, so what? How does it bring glory to God? So it has to be something begun by God, and it has to be good work. Once that is certified, then the promise here in Philippians is, if he is the one who began the work, he will carry it on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. And that's a very, very important thing for you to have in mind. So the first thing we are learning in this, from the story of Moses fighting the Amorites, is only fight a battle that God has sanctioned. Then verse 25 says, this very day I will begin to put the terror and fear of you on the nations under heaven. They will hear reports of you and will tremble and be in anguish before you. Now, you are walking in confidence. But the second thing God is promising, if it is his battle, he'll have espionage of some sort, where you go behind the enemy lines and create a story that will make them think they will lose. For sure they will lose. So, according to this passage, the king of Sihon will be experiencing terror and fear even before the beginning of the fight. And it will not just be that king. They have been promised even all the other kings they are going to deal with. God will go before and put a terror in them. They will hear reports of you and will tremble and be in anguish because of you. Isn't that a wonderful promise? Once it's God's work, the second thing he's promising is he will go to the opponent and put them in confusion. Then verse 26 says, from the desert of Kademoth, I sent messengers to Sihon, king of Heshbon, offering peace and saying, let us pass through your country. We will stay on the main road. We will not turn aside to the right or to the left. What a nice offer. Number 2, sell us food to eat and water to drink for their price in silver. Only let us pass through on foot. And do not think he's giving a proper argument. And do not think it is strange. Ask the Edomites, the descendants of Esau, who live in Seir. Also ask the Moabites, the descendants of Lot, who live in Ar. We actually passed and never fought them. We can do the same. That's the argument he is giving. He is giving them. Until we cross the Jordan into the land the Lord our God is giving us. But Sihon of Heshbon refused. Now, in other words, do not go fighting before you have tried peaceful means, some method of avoiding the fight. It's true, it's God's fight, but he still allowed them to offer some terms of peace. And there are people who are so fighting oriented that they are always having to fight with somebody or other. They are involved in some sort of verbal violence on a continuous basis. My friend, it will be important, very, very important, that you understand that even if you have God on your side, don't go provoking people just for the sake of it. Find a method. And you can see Moses is giving very good terms. He's saying, we are just passing through. That's the first thing. We will not settle there. And we will not even sign to the right or left. We will just pass through. Number 2, any food we eat, we shall pay for. Number 3, you can ask others. We have witnesses that we don't just fight anybody. Now, my friend, are you involved in that? Do you look for solutions in ways that bring peace, or you just want to go into a fight and start dealing with people in a fight. You know something? Even when you bend your backward over to accommodate people and talk nicely to them, if God wants to do them in, they will still refuse. That's the message we get in verse 30. But Sihon, king of Heshbon, refused to let us pass through, for the Lord your God had made his spirit stubborn and his heart obstinate, in order to give him into your hands as he has now done. So do your part, but there are people, if God has sanctioned the fight, they will not necessarily accept, but they will regret later when you have actually defeated them. So it's not you who should become a provocative person creating wars. But even if you don't want war, war will come to you. You know, I keep telling people that a Christian is in warfare, apende asipende, whether they like it or not, just by being a Christian. I still remember, taking some people for lunch. Then they order a drink, alcoholic drink, and I order my soda. Then they get offended. Oh, so you think we are very evil because we are taking alcohol? I have said absolutely nothing. I keep telling people, if you truly live a Christian life, you will always have opponents. You always have people fighting you. You don't have to provoke it at all. You don't have to provoke it at all. Because just by being a Christian, you'll be different. For example, your family, you are back in your family, and they want to do some traditional things. Obviously, you can't agree with it. By disagreeing with it, they feel attacked. They feel like you are calling them witch doctors. There'll be trouble, but it's not your... Look for peace. But even if you are looking for peace, as long as you don't compromise and remain a Christian, you should not be surprised when people disagree. And that's why you're able to love them, even after they fought you. They can make you an enemy, but you don't take them as enemies. You because you know very well that the devil is behind it. So I think it's a very important thing to understand that as long as you walk in righteousness and others are walking in darkness, there's no fellowship between light and darkness. There will always be a problem. It may be something to do with the traditions. It may be something to do with we want to bribe somewhere so that we can get this parcel of land inherited faster. You say you can't bribe, and they feel like you are not cooperating. So I am not asking you to compromise, but I'm saying look for terms of peace without compromising. And as long as you walk in righteousness, please understand there will be trouble. There will be trouble in your... there will be trouble, and war will come even if you are not looking for it. Verse 1 says, the Lord said to me, see, I have begun to deliver Sihon in his country over to you. Now begin to conquer and possess the land. In other words, now that he has refused to give you way, just let the fight begin. And rest assured, it's not your fight. I, God, have begun to deliver this enemy and his country over to you. Your work will be to conquer and possess what the people have already defeated. And I think that's important, that there should not be cowardice. When, for example, they're asking you to do something evil, stand your ground. They may even threaten to kill you, stand your ground. That's the kind of warfare we are talking about. Do not compromise in any way. Some of them are business issues. You want to meet your sales target, but they ask you that you must compromise and give them some bribe. Don't give them. And of course, they'll be looking for ways of ensuring you do not win the contract or you do not make the sale. Stand your ground. That's what we mean by fighting. Not necessarily taking, like these ones are to take real arms. But for most of us, the fight will be a spiritual battle. It will be a test of the wills. And I'm saying, God is telling this one, yes, start the fight. I've already gone before you, and I intend you to win. Take possession. So I don't know what fighting you are going through, but what the fight is, God sanctions it. If you have done your best to avoid the fight, to look for another alternative solution, but they're asking you to compromise, don't. Stand your ground and see what God will do. He can still give you the sales volume and you meet your target. Or he can ensure that you are able to achieve the land purchase without bribery. He certainly can give you very, very, very good offers or directions that will help you out of the fix you happen to be in. Verse 32 says, when Sihon and all the army came out to meet us in battle at Jahaz, the Lord our God delivered him over to us, and we struck him down together with his sons and his whole army. And that time we took all his towns and completely destroyed them, men, women, children. We left no survivors. In other words, the victory was so total. There was only dry land without any human beings. Obviously, there's a debate about the way God told them to do, but there's no way they would occupy the land. And he wants to set up the land as a place of worship to him. And he is creating Israel as an example of how he wants to be worshipped, with a mixture of people who worship other gods. He wanted Israel to be pure. That's why he wanted everybody, every worshiper of an unknown god or of idols should be destroyed first, so that you can now have pure worship of Jehovah. And sometimes that may be what is actually required. Do not live your Christian life with certain allowances for the devil, with certain allowances for the evil one. He wants complete destruction of the evil one. Whenever you are dealing with somebody, do not create an understanding that makes him think you can give in. You know, a non-Christian approaches you as a girl, and you say, I'm in school. Tell him the truth. Even if I left school, I can't marry non-Christians. There's no fellowship between light and darkness. But sometimes we talk in a way that makes somebody have hope. No, destroy his hope completely, so that he knows that you can never compromise on what God has actually told you. And that these people were destroyed. The enemy was destroyed. Remember, it's God's war. So you have to do it his way. You cannot compromise in order to get peace. Otherwise, how would it be God's war? And so here, he gave them victory, total victory. So they were able to win. And I think that's the same thing you need to understand, that he wants you to live a totally pure life with no aspect of your life compromised. You either in business, you cannot be doing a business that doesn't honor him. Or in your marriage, you cannot be involved in something that doesn't honor him. Or in your relationship, in your clan, you cannot be involved in something that doesn't honor him. No. You need to be totally his. The enemy must be destroyed in every aspect of your life. Then we read in verse 35, but the livestock and the plunder from the towns we had captured, we carried off to ourselves. From Aroer on the rim of the Arnon Gorge, and on the towns in Gorge, even as far as Gilead, not one town was too strong for us. The Lord our God gave us all of them. What is he saying? That God can make what belonged to the enemy to become ours. The enemy is defeated, and we start getting one. But I'm not suggesting in any way that you steal from the enemy. I'm talking about God himself arranging it. Somebody wanted his business to be the one to beat yours. God destroys his business. Yours has more customers, and all the customers that used to go to your competitor now come to you. That's really what we are talking about. but not lying, because the same Bible that is asking you to fight also tells you never to steal. So you cannot be involved in stealing and still think you are doing the right thing. So once the people are not there, their livestock and their gold, their silver, I think that's what is being called plunder, town after town was all taken over. So even as the Israelites are going on, they are becoming richer and richer. They started their life in Canaan much richer than they had left, than the way they left Egypt. But remember, even Egypt, they plundered. In order to persuade them to leave as quickly as possible, the Egyptians gave them many, many valuables. So their God is using the fight in order to help them to be better and to serve him better. Now, he goes on to say that the towns, it was a particular geographical location which they took over from the rim of the Arnon Gorge all the way to Gilead. Every town, because they fought systematically, every town was defeated. Why were they winning? But 36 is telling us, the Lord our God gave us all of them. That is being repeated right throughout the passage. It's not them who won, it's God who won. And Moses wants the people of Israel to be aware that they only won because they are with God. Without God, they would not have won. And that's something if the battle belongs to the Lord, then the glory must go back to God. You cannot claim the battle belongs to the Lord. Then you start telling people what a clever person you are, how you know how to negotiate, how you know how to intervene. No. Your language must be a language that brings glory to God. People like Daniel of old were clear. The king wants to reward him. Say, no, it's not me. It's God who has revealed this matter. So that the king would know it's not man, it is God. Moses keeps repeating, the Lord our God gave us all the land. It's true they had to fight, and they fought. There was bloodshed. But they knew the only reason why they were winning was because of God. Do you, in your fights, in your challenges that you face in life, do you see God's hand and do you acknowledge it? You know, when you acknowledge it, it allows those who are listening to be turned towards God. And to know that because God is not a respecter of persons, if he could help you, he can also help them. And that will be an important thing you need to talk. So if it's God's battle, let the credit and glory go to him. Then verse 37, but in accordance with the command of the Lord our God, you did not encroach on any of the land of the Ammonites, neither the land along the coast of the Jabbok, nor around the towns in the hills. He repeats, the reason why we won the battle is because, like Philippians chapter 1 verse 6 said, the only reason why we were able to win is because God began the battle. It was his good work. And he carried it right up to the end. And how did they do it? They ensured as soon as they finished the boundary that they had been given, they did not feel, wow, we are winning. Why don't we take this other one also? No, they actually gave themselves to the Lord. So, my friend, don't fight on your own. Allow the Lord to fight your battle. But if they are the battle of the Lord, it will be very important that you obey him. Check with him first whether it is his battle. Number 2, allow the Lord to go ahead of you in the battle. And it will be important. And number 3, start with negotiations rather than just picking a fight. Find a way of solving out that it may remove the fight. But be assured, if it's God's battle, it will still happen and you will still win. So that in the end, it will be clear to you, which is the last point, all glory goes to God.